Hey guys, Bill, the Kansas Flamingo Chef. Thanks for joining me at my bar. Today I want to talk about home bar setup. A question I get asked quite often is, what do you really need in your home bar? Because let's be honest, you don't need all of this. This is called hoarding or collecting. This is not called a home bar. So what do you really need? Well, first of all, let's talk about some basics. You need, obviously, alcohol. You need some basic mixers, and you need tools. But it's also important to remember that you have to, when you're building your bar, think about who is the bar for. If you're only serving yourself or your significant other, you probably don't need every kind of booze known to man. You probably need what you like. And it's nice to have a few little extra things around in case company comes over. If you have a tendency to entertain, it's probably better to have a more traditional stock bar. So what I'm going to focus on is a traditional stock bar and the basics. You don't have to go crazy. If this is what you enjoy like me, by all means, take up your collection. First is rum. You need a clear white rum in your bar. It's also good to have a dark rum, but you don't have to have every kind of rum there is, unless you're making a lot of tiki drinks, in which case you're going to want a few different rums. Something simple like Blue Chair Bay is a good choice. I don't recommend Castillo or the cheapest thing you can find at the liquor store, because quite frankly, it's not going to have very good flavor. If you want to expand your rum selection a little bit, I recommend you get a nice aged rum, just a medium rum like an Appleton Estate, and that'll be kind of your mid-range. And then you're also going to want to have some real dark rum on hand. Spiced rum is fine. If you really enjoy spiced rum, by all means, grab a bottle. But you don't really need it, because unless you're drinking Captain Morgan and Coke, like a college kid, it's probably not something you're going to use very often. I'm going to leave this bottle here because we're going to talk about your well, your baseline of things for mixing. So we have rum. Next, we have vodka. Again, just a medium of the run vodka. This is Absolute, very common, practical vodka. If you want to go for something a little better, by all means, do. My personal favorite is Chopin and Belvedere, but you don't have to go this high end. Now, one thing nice about vodka, though, is it's a lot less expensive. Up next, also a clear spirit, is gin. One of the most popular gins on earth is Tanqueray. That's why I always have it around. But my personal favorite is Bombay Sapphire. But this is a nice, simple combination. And if you're going to make a lot of mixed drinks, gin and tonic is a very popular one, as is vodka. I'm a tequila junkie. I've got more labels of tequila than most people can count. And you do need just a baseline tequila, especially to make palomas, margaritas, that kind of thing. You don't need the most expensive tequila out there, but don't buy the cheapest stuff either. This is Cimarron. Very nice, simple bottle of tequila. This will run you about $28 for a liter. This stuff, a lot more. Now, if you want a better high-end tequila that you can find, a couple of things I suggest to you, especially if you're first starting out. You might look for a He Cuatro, or really inexpensive and surprisingly good is this stuff, Don Remo. I think this bottle was like $30 for a Reposado. If you ever want to make a Long Island iced tea, you're going to need these four. And you're also going to need an orange liqueur like a triple sec. Another good one to have in your well. The two outstanding well liquors, run-of-the-house liquors that you need to have, well, need is probably not the right word, is bourbon, i.e. whiskey, and scotch. For years and years and years, every bar had scotch in their well. What's becoming more common anymore is they move scotch out of the well into the well or into the call and premium section only, mainly because traditional well scotch, it's really bad scotch. So if you want to have a just cheap scotch at your bar and you're not a Scotch drinker, I'd recommend you just don't do it. You'd be better off to just get a couple of decent whiskeys and have them around. If somebody come to your house and they're a Scotch drinker, if they're a Scotch drinker, they're going to be pretty set on which Scotch they want. So buying the wrong Scotch is worse than having none at all. If you are dead set on the idea of having a Scotch behind your bar, not for yourself, but for others, then I highly recommend you stay with a product in the Speyside range, something like the Balvenie or a Glenlivet. These are commonly known middle-range Scotches that people enjoy, that you won't be stepping out into the world of stuff that nobody will drink. It's just wasted behind your bar. Now, if you're a Scotch person, by all means, let's have a Scotch conversation. I'd love to do it. Last but not least, let's talk about bourbon. Now, I've got bourbons. I got all kinds of bourbons. I got bourbons that wrap all the way around over here. Bourbon is one of those things that, or whiskey, because all bourbon is whiskey, but not all whiskey is bourbon. Bourbon is also a preference liquor. It's something that people who really are bourbon drinkers are pretty picky about what they drink. So if you're going to put a bourbon in your bar, you're going to want to start with something that's kind of middle of the road, that isn't crazy expensive, and also isn't too hot. So I would suggest you go, if you can find it, Buffalo Trace. This is one of the most sought after bourbons there is. And it used to be like $20 a bottle. Now it's running 30 to 40. But this is great stuff. But if you can't find it, you'll probably be able to find this. And it tastes almost exactly the same. So this is a good bourbon to run in your well. If you can't find those, or if you don't want to spend that, I mean, there's others out there, but these are going to be your best choices. Now, if you want to go on the cheap and just have a bourbon around, this is a great option. This is a Wolcott, which is a brand made by Barton and generally found at Total Wine. It's cheap. It's good. You can see I've been drinking it. It will work as a well bourbon, especially for your guests. Mixers. Sodas are important mixers. There are really only three you absolutely have to have. Two, if you want to cut corners. One is Coke, Cola, whatever you want to call it. I like Coke Zero, but a cola is important. You also need 7-Up or Sprite, something that nature. And I also like to have ginger ale on hand, because ginger ale mixes great with most spirits. You need cocktail bitters. These are just traditional aromatic bitters. You can go crazy and get all the flavors. The two that I recommend you have behind the bar are traditional and orange. Some other mixers that are really a good idea to have on hand and important. Tonic water. Get good tonic water. Don't get a 2-liter bottle of cheap tonic water that you throw out 93% of. These little bottles of Fever are awesome. You can also get Q. They work great as well. And that comes in cans as well. Club soda. It's one I don't use often, but people who like club soda like club soda. Somebody who wants a press, you're going to need club soda and 7-Up. Me, if I want just a sparkly, bubbly thing, I want Topo Chico. You need cocktail cherries. You can go out and buy a bottle of sweet and sour mix if you want, but stuff's terrible. I recommend you keep simple syrup on hand. It's just sugar and water. You can make it at all times. Also, a bottle of fresh squeezed lime juice is a great idea, and you can make that when you need it as well, but I prefer to keep it in bottles like this. Speaking of limes, they're not just for garnish. You need limes and you need lemons, because you're going to use the juice of both, the rinds of both. They're important. And again, back to the old-fashioned, the oranges too. Laying on the bar are the most important tools of the trade. You need a cocktail shaker. These things come in all shapes and sizes. Some of them have the lids on them, whatever you're comfortable with. Me, I like the traditional 2-part shaker. You need a couple of strainers. You need a regular strainer like this, and you need a fine strainer like this. You also need a good jigger. I like these stand-up jiggers, but you can use the old traditional 2-sided or flips or whatever. A bar spoon, a muddler, a good bar knife, and last but not least, a glass cocktail stirrer. Other than that, it really comes down to what you want and what you like. You can go crazy behind the bar. You don't have to have everything they sell. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that's cool. Don't get me wrong. I mean, you can get into cocktail syrups and every flavor of syrup known to man and margarita salts and all these things, and that's fine. But the key is buy the basics and build from there. Till next time, as I throw everything on the floor, eat and drink fabulous.